It's knowing that your door is always open and your path is free to walk. It makes me tend to leave my sleeping bag rolled up and stashed behind your couch. It's knowing I'm not shackled by forgotten words and bonds and the ink stains that have dried upon some line. That keeps you in the back roads by the rivers of my memory. That keeps you ever gentle on my mind. It's not clinging to the rocks and ivy painted on their columns now that bind me. Or something that somebody said because they thought we'd fit together walking. It's not knowing that the world will not be cursing or forgiving when I walk around the railroad track and find that you're moving on the back roads by the rivers of my memory, and hours you're just gentle on my mind. Though the wheat fields and the clotheslines and the junkyards and the highways come between us, and some other woman's crying to her mother 'cause she turned and I was gone, I still might run in silence, tears of joy might stain my face, and the summer sun might burn me till I'm blind. But not to where I cannot see you walking on the back roads by the rivers flowing gentle on my mind. I dip my cup of soup back from a gurgling, crackling cauldron in some train yard. My beard a rustling towel and a dirty hat pulled low across my face. Through cup hands round the tin can, I pretend to hold you to my breast and find that you're waiting from the back roads by the rivers of my memories, ever smiling, ever gentle on my mind. Chris McDonald with you by phone with my dear co-host of the election update booth, Mahgdalen the Rose. You're just the Rose to me. You're Mahgdalen Rose to the audience, but you're my goddaughter. Good to see you tonight, kid. I'm always honored to have you on the network, especially with these updates. And we've announced to people throughout the coming year, whenever we have a primary or we get to the general election, you're going to be our co-host, and we brought you on tonight because tonight we got some election news we want to talk about. Nevada with the caucus today, and then I do have to I gotta get this off my chest. Nikki Haley is the only person I know in the world that can try to positively spin that none of these candidates get 68% of the vote and she gets 30%. And she says that's a victory. I mean, you have to laugh at that. I had to sort of laugh at that. But that's the political world we live in, Rose. But the bigger news that I wanted to bring you on, because I know me and you have really been talking about this one, is bye-bye Rona McDaniel finally. It looks like she is finally headed out the door. And all I can tell her is go have Thanksgiving dinner with Uncle Mitt, because you and him are pretty much in the same category as I'm concerned. But good to see you tonight, kid. Got a lot to talk about in the next half hour. Good to see you. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
All right, let's get to the primary first. It's pretty much evident that Trump is going to take all 26 of these electoral the delegates tonight in the caucus. He didn't participate in that general election yesterday, the day before, on Tuesday, but he is participating in the caucus, and looks like he's going to walk away with a landslide with that. And any thoughts about Nikki Haley? Do you think that she expected the shellacking with none of the above, or do you think that she's just trying to wind address the fact that she got her butt handed to her by nobody?
I think she was expecting it. What's really strange to me is that she even participated in this.
I am too.
Why not just wait? Why not just be part of the one everyone's going to cover? There may have been a thought that because Donald Trump wasn't on it, that somehow she'd be the one to walk away with it. Like, if you're Nikki Haley, at this point, how on earth do you justify staying in the race? You can't even win when Donald Trump isn't on the ballot, because the idea was she's the alternative to him. But apparently having no one else is the alternative to Nikki Haley at this point.
Yeah, it's exactly right, Mags. And I just, again, I don't think the country in the Republican Party is ready for Nikki Haley. And I will tell you this, and again, we've bantered this back and forth, and until she drops out, we'll banter it back, and forth. I just think she's been a plant, honestly, because these polls that are out there claiming that she's beaten Biden by 30 points and 10 points in a head-to-head, I just think they're planted polls. I think that they have got basically... they've got that out there for the purpose of drawing people to her, to take people away from Trump. Trump can't beat Biden. And look, I think right now she has got nothing to offer this country. She's got nothing to offer the Republican Party. She's worse than the Dems, honestly. Some of these platforms and positions she takes, it's like listening to the Democrat platform, to be honest with you. And I'm just, I'm just curious, because you're from the younger age group. If people don't know that, you're old enough to be my daughter. But do you think there's anything appealing to her, to the young people? Do you see any appeal yourself in her, or do you think that? Because I know the independent thing, I get that, but I think the independents, Mag, with the state of the country, I don't think they're going to care at this point who's on that Republican ticket. I don't think they want 4 more years of this crap.
No. Well, she's not really appealing to anyone. Her supporters are already her supporters. She's already got her own grouping together. It's not growing. Her coalition isn't expanding. And in a lot of ways, Ron DeSantis had his coalition expand a little bit. He picked up people from here and there. If you're a Nikki Haley supporter, you're still a Nikki Haley supporter. There's not this growth that she keeps talking about. And it's very interesting because she tweets out all this stuff about how in a head-to-head matchup with Biden, she beats him. But if you can't win a primary, it doesn't matter. And this is something her people don't want to hear. All these polls don't matter if at the end of the day you lose the primary.
That's
and
right.
She's losing the primary by huge margins. So how is it she's going to beat Biden in a head-to-head matchup if she doesn't have the support of the majority of Republicans?
That's very
so even
true,
those polls, they cancel out by the fact that she doesn't have support within the GOP.
That is so well said, and I think most people get that. But again, you're dealing with a liberal media that is hell-bent on destroying Trump. Now, there's not been any word out of the Supreme Court tonight about this situation with him not being on the ballot in Colorado. Every indication, though, is John Roberts pretty much, and Clarence Thomas both, basically put a torpedo in the plaintiff's argument today. And John Roberts has come out and said, there is absolutely no precedent for this, and it's a dangerous precedent to set, to be taking people off the ballot for political differences. And there's no proof. He's not been charged with anything. This is not something that is official. And, and there's even statements that he told people to peaceably protest. There was no indication that he was telling people to go down there and riot at the Capitol. Look, these knuckleheads that did that, that was their own doing. It wasn't Trump's doing. But these people are using every angle they can to get him off the ticket. And I just think of these polls are the same thing. But I think you make an excellent point, like you always do, kid. She can't even pull support from the Republican base. And look, if you're getting 30% of the vote in a primary, okay, that means that you are probably the only part of that you're getting is the rhinos and people that are not really Republican, but they may be independent. And in some cases, I think that happened even in New Hampshire where they can cross over. I'm not so sure that her whole 20%, Magdalene wasn't all Democrats. I mean, she's getting Democrat votes because they hate Trump. And I think if you got I tell you what, I would love to see just one primary when nobody can vote that's not a registered Republican, okay? Put her up against Trump and see how many registered Republicans vote for her and how many registered Republicans vote for Trump. I think it would be 90 to 10. And I'm not even sure she'd get 10. That's just my take on it.
Yeah. And it's difficult because she knows that the majority of her support is coming from Democrats.
Exactly.
They crossed party lines in New Hampshire to do it. I think a lot of this comes from the fact that Democrats have been kept out of their own nomination process really since 2016 because in a lot of ways Hillary Clinton was just coronated. The same thing with Joe Biden. There was never really going to be anyone else. Bernie Sanders in 2016 gave it the best shot of anyone in decades, and he was squashed so dramatically. He was like out there saying, go support Hillary and we should have to vote out Trump. We can't let him be president. So they've been shut out of their primary process. And what that has bred in a lot of ways is a despotism. So a lot of them look around, they're like, we could accept Nikki Haley. We could deal with Nikki Haley. And from that, you get people going over and crossing the party line. The Trump campaign has never been worried about it. Even the DeSantis campaign wasn't worried about it because they knew at the end of the day, she's not going to win. She's not the person of the moment. And that must be unfortunate for her. But her policies on immigration are out of touch. People do not want to be told they have to be nicer in their language towards illegal immigrants. Her policy in terms of monitoring people's social media use. I mean, this is the woman who said she wanted the names and information of everyone on social media in the United States. People are not going to vote for that.
No, they're not.
So her pushing forward at this point, it's like you've shot your shot. It's not going to work out. I'm sorry that you're about 20 years too late to the Republican Party or 15, but you are, and you should accept it and go do something else.
Thank you. You said it best. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'll just say amen to that. That's perfectly said. 20 years late to the Republican Party, 20 years late to reality is what she is. But I do want one quick question on her, and then we're going to move on to some more interesting fodder. Do you think she is staying in this race for pride's sake? Is there anything she gains at this point by getting shellacked in her home state of South Carolina? I don't see it, but I don't understand why she's staying. You got any thoughts on that?
Well, I think she thinks that Trump is going to be knocked out of the race. And if you think that, it makes sense to stay in the race. It makes sense to go on and to stay in contention. DeSantis does not think that. That's why he dropped out. DeSantis is not delusional. So that was very helpful to DeSantis. He didn't waste his time on this because he knew it wasn't going to happen. And he had a lot of sanity, whereas Nikki Haley operates from this point of view that it's going to work out for her. It has to work out for her. And I remember people saying years ago the amount of money behind Nikki Haley was insane. And it is insane because she represents an area of the Republican Party that is extraordinarily corporate. People want cheap labor. They don't care about the American people. It's a very nasty, sort of dark area where it's really just about greed. That's the candidate she is, and that's okay, but it's not going to happen, Nikki. And picking her as vice president, even at this point, because she's sort of living in delusion, would be a bit detrimental to Trump, I think, for his own voters. I mean, they'll probably get in line. But a lot of what she's done now is just hurting herself. No one's covering her. If you watch the news, what you're going to see most days is something about the border crisis, Biden, you're going to see Trump stuff, but no one's talking about Nikki Haley. And that's because there's nothing to talk about with Nikki Haley.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you 1,000% there, kid. All right. Now, second thing that's a little bit more intriguing to me and even better news than Nikki Haley going up in smoke is the end of the train wreck known as Rona McDaniel. And for those that don't know, she announced yesterday, day before, that after the South Carolina primary, and I understand, I read one report, I think it was just True Politics or somebody, that she had actually a meeting with President Trump, and he pretty much put the pedal to the metal and told her, you're gone. And I think she's seeing the handwriting on the wall. And so she's just beating him to the punch, and she's walking away after a train wreck. And look, we have lost election after election. We have lost the midterms. We didn't have a red wave this past November like everybody predicted. She's wasted money. There's reports coming out that she was wasting funds on herself personally. I mean, there's just this litany of things. And look, I think the truth be told, if you got down to it, she was betraying the Republican Party to the Dems, and her uncle, with his hatred of Trump, he was probably feeding her all sorts of BS. And look, blood's thicker than water, Magdalene, even with uncles and nieces. I mean, look, she's not going to go against the family. And I don't understand, and I know you said this last time we were on the network, I don't understand how they've kept her this long. I really don't. But for whatever reason they did, but she's gone now, and I understand the guy that has got Trump's approval. It's a pretty solid choice, but let's talk about Rona. I know you're glad to see her go, but has she done irreparable damage to the Republicans? Can they recover before November?
Well, I think my frustration first with Rona McDaniel and Trump is that he kept her in because he needed her. He needed someone who was willing to give him whatever he wanted in the Republican Party. It's never been complicated to see why Rona McDaniel wants to be RNC chairwoman. It gave her extraordinary amounts of power and money and notoriety, although I don't think the notoriety really mattered to her. I think it was the power and the money. And Trump used her to secure the RNC. A few years ago, there was massive reshuffling there, led really by Donald Trump Jr., at the behest of Trump when he was president, basically pushing out everyone who was not a Trump loyalist. And you could not have done that if you had an RNC chair that was much more, aware of the reality of politics. But he kept Rona in. He used Rona to his own benefit. And now going into 2024, he has sort of the privilege of not needing her anymore. So she's become a bit disposable to him. So that's what I think started this. And the idea that Trump is going to have a big hand in picking the next RNC chair. In some ways, it makes sense because he's the leader of the party, whether or not you like him. But I fear that the people he's going to pick are going to be people who cannot say no to him. And I mentioned this in another interview recently. Disagreeing with Trump's campaign strategy doesn't make you a traitor. It makes you wanting him. It just means you want him to win so much that you're critical of it. So as long as he picks somebody who can do that, who's allowed to do that, it's a good thing. But there are lots of Republicans and young conservatives who want him to win wholeheartely, want the country to be run by Republicans, but are called traitors over and over again because they disagree with his political strategy to get to what he wants himself to have. So if he can find somebody like that who can say those things, I think we'll be in better shape.
Look, I think you make a great point, and I think that's what got him in trouble. I will say this, and this is just an observation. I have seen a difference in him and his tone. He's still doing a little name calling with Nikki, but for the most part, he is showing some humility, even in winning. And I hope that's a good sign, Mag, that he's seeing the light, because I don't think this scorched earth, in your face, I'm Trump, you're wrong, I'm right, is going to play well with the independents, and it's not going to play well again with most in the country. If he will show this humility and literally let the country know that he's there for the betterment of the country, and let this other stuff go. Because politics is a nasty business. And, I mean, look, it's a contact sport. There's going to be people that disagree with you. There's going to be people in your own party that disagree with you. There's going to be people in your party. I'm with you. I don't care if people disagree with you. I think it's good. Look, there's never been anything that's ever got worked out, if you think about it, in life in general. We're talking families. We're talking business. We're talking personal. Look, a good, healthy discussion is always good. I don't care how healthy it is, as long as there's respect and mutual respect on both parts. A good, healthy discussion is never bad. And I think you make a great point. With Trump, he don't want those healthy discussions because at times he gets a little defensive and thinks, and I will say this, I may be wrong about this, maybe his supporters do more than he does. But his supporters, I'm with you, they start calling people traitors and backstabbers and this and that and the other. If somebody goes out and just questions President Trump's judgment or questions what he's doing, and look, we're dealing with issues that are so deep, Magdalene, we're going to have a consensus of wisdom. In the multitude of counsel, there's wisdom. And he's going to have to come to grips with that, and his followers are going to have to come to grips with that. Just because we disagree with something he says does not mean we disagree with him and we're going to jump ship. It doesn't mean we don't want him to run the country, but he's got to take advice, and he's got to be willing to listen to all points and then can make the right call. That's just my take on it. Is that sort of what you're trying to say?
Yeah, and it's very difficult because these people who he's against, who his supporters lash out at, a lot of times they're the only ones telling the truth. And we've talked before about the fact that Donald Trump was not elected to push forward criminal justice reform. Donald Trump was elected to secure the border in 2016 and to bring back real capitalism and for foreign policy to be a main issue and for peace through strength. That's why he was elected. So a lot of the times where he was focused on criminal justice reform and courting Kim Kardashian's support, like that matters to the majority of Americans. It was as if he was sort of turning his back on the voters who had voted for him. And you see this in the data. This is why it's frustrating. When you look at the voter data, you see the fact that he has lost points with white working class voters. You see that he's not gaining with black voters. Yes, the Republican Party is doing better slightly with Hispanic voters, but we had been on that trajectory for a while. So you see this reflected in the numbers, and it becomes a point where why are you sacrificing your own voter base in pursuit of something you're never going to have? I think a lot of Trump's problem is he wants people to like him on a really deep level. Half the country likes him, though, so it should be enough at this point. Like, it's enough. They like you, they support you, they voted for you, they think you're the right guy to do it. You can't make these other people like you. So someone like Kellyanne Conway, I think, is one of the few people who can really push back against him. He seems to have a lot of respect for her. When she would say those things, you'd see him sort of mellow out a little bit or focus on his own voters. More people like her and less yes men will greatly increase not only us winning the presidency, but winning across the board because of how much of a say he has in candidate selection and recruitment at this point.
Okay, we got about 10 minutes, and I want to ask you a couple of quick-fire questions to get your opinion. All right, let's talk about Vice President. He threw Tim Scott's name out. Magdalen Rose like that choice or not?
I like Tim Scott. I think it's a good choice. I think Democrats don't see it coming either. Tim Scott just announced he's getting married to an age-appropriate woman with a clean past. So far, it seems. I think it's a good choice.
Okay, I'm with you. I think, look, I don't agree with everything Tim Scott says, but I think, and again, I hate to bring the racial stuff into it, but you've got Kamala on the side of the deal, the black female. He will be a black male. He will offset some of this attitude that Trump's picking another white guy to run on his ticket like he did before with Pence. And and again, I hate this racial politics, Magdalen. I just hate it. I detest it. I'm sick of hearing about this diversity crap, and we need a diverse. I heard Biden out there saying the other day, we got the most diverse cabinet in the world, and you look at the people they've got in this cabinet, they're the most inept, stupid, dangerous, country-threatening, democracy-threatening, freedom-threatening people you could ever have. But in the name of diversity, it's like what happened with Boeing and these airplanes. They're finding out that a lot of this diversity hiring, they were putting people that wasn't qualified to put a freaking door on an airplane and bolt a door together, and people at 30,000 feet screaming in terror because they wanted to be diverse. And we've got basically the same plane crash going on in D.C. tonight because of this diversity. I don't care about the color of Tim Scott's skin. What I do care is about the color of his heart and whether he loves America or not, and he's going to help the people do the right thing. I can tell you, Biden's number two ain't going to do that. She's out for this woke, destroy the babies, kill everything that she sees agenda, and because she's a black woman, she gets away with it. Now, having said that, I think Tim Scott would make a solid, safe choice. I think that if he's leaning in that direction, I'm with him. Okay, question number two. This is a little bit more complicated. On the Dem side, do you see any scenario where Joe Biden is replaced at the top of this ticket? I'm getting this question asked more and more and more and more. Do you think Biden makes it to November on that ticket? Because they can, up to the convention, Magdalen, even if he wins all these primaries, these delegates can get up in that convention and say, we're throwing our lot behind somebody else. Can they not?
They can. I think he'd have to do something so dramatic that shows that he's really not there mentally, that it's undeniable. He would have to go really far off the deep end, which would be very sad to see, because it's always sad when you see someone losing their abilities, no matter which political party they're in. So he would have to be so overtly unable to execute his duties and carry them out. And it would have to be televised. He'd have to do something during a speech or something during a campaigning event where the American people could watch it over and over again. Nothing that could be spun. He'd have to really, truly break down for them to replace him. Because honestly, if you're the Democrats, why would you replace him? Having Joe Biden as your leader has been going very well for you. You've won the midterms. You're doing well across the country. You're winning your abortion ballot initiatives. It doesn't help them at this junction to get rid of him in the same way, unless, of course, he really goes off and it's impossible to hide or to downplay what's happening. And then I think you'd see a very sort of compassionate swap out. It wouldn't be we're kicking Joe Biden out. It would be Joe Biden's given so much of this country. It's time for him to rest and to enjoy his later years.
Like talking to dead people and calling Macron Mitterrand?
Something like that, like taking off his clothes or something, or like completely forget where he is. It would have to be so overt where you're like, oh, he's not okay.
Okay, I got you. Well, look, let me tell you how messed up this country is. When John Fetterman starts making sense to Chris McDonald, I'm going to tell you something. Chris McDonald needs to start drinking, okay? John Fetterman is making more sense to me tonight than the whole Democrat Party. So what does that say, Magdalene Rose? What is that saying?
It says that John Fetterman's not our biggest problem. Like, John Fetterman just really isn't. He's okay. I'm not unhappy about John Fetterman. I can deal with John Fetterman. And the more that he talks, the more I'm like, well, good for Democrats to have to deal with some disloyalty within the ranks. It's about time.
It's about time. I'm with you there, kid. And he's actually making some pretty good points, to be honest with you. Hey, 5 minutes. I got a question off subject tonight. This illegal alien situation that is hitting New York City. I know that you're up in that general part of the country. Are you seeing where you're at any influx of illegal aliens in your area? Mm-hmm. Have you seen anything that has disturbed you and concerned you? Because I'm going to tell you something. This epidemic of crime, we've got a guest coming on tonight in a regular 9 o'clock hour, Mike Simonelli, and he is a former police officer, and it is a war zone in New York City right now. It is a literal third world country war zone, and it's not getting any better. Have you seen anything that's caused concern in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, there are tent encampments everywhere. This is happening everywhere, especially as it gets a little bit warmer. It's really very clear that you have a massive amount of people living on the streets. No one's hiding this, and that's why when President Xi came to China, Gavin Newsom had San Francisco cleaned up. I believe it was San Francisco, part of California, cleaned up and bust these people out pretty much overnight. It's extraordinarily clear that the country's in disrepair. And you see when you're driving in highways, you see up on the areas, you see tents. And when it was colder, when people couldn't be out there, you just see that they've left them and they're going to come back to them. So it's not even as if it's temporary. They have built tent neighborhoods that they just come and go from. You see people walking around who are obviously homeless, obviously suffering from something. And they're in disrepair. People who are doing drugs in the streets. This is happening in really nice areas in this country. So there's no discrepancy anymore between a good area and a bad area. And that's why you're starting to see Biden talk about it a lot more, because those white Democrats who've always supported the Biden world and everything, because they don't really see a difference. So their neighborhoods are starting to be impacted. And once that happens, it's not okay.
Are you, do you feel safe?
Yeah, I think if you're not out there interacting with them, if you're just driving past the scenes, it's okay. But if you're like a college student, for example, and you're walking around downtown Pittsburgh or downtown New York City, it's not a comfortable scenario. And there's not a lot of police officers there. So in New York, they're losing hundreds of police officers every couple months. Same thing happening in Pittsburgh. You're having these problems where more and more homeless people and migrants, and it's clear that they're illegal migrants. It's clear who they are. They're coming in, and less police are coming in. So all that creates is nobody can police anything, and nobody can even do like wellness checks on these people. So how is that compassionate?
It's not compassionate. It's dangerous, buddy. Well, kid, listen, Abigail Kern, I think, sums it up. She loves your views, and I love your views as well. And you know I love you like my own kid, and I appreciate you being with me tonight. Listen, we'll see you the 24th. That's our next primary, South Carolina. Mm-hmm. We'll is that on a Saturday night?
It is. Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, we may have a special McFile Saturday night that night by phone again, and we'll see what happens. Do you, one final prediction, does Nikki Haley drop out after South Carolina?
No, I think she's going to stay in a little bit longer. I think she genuinely believes Trump's going to be taken out. I might be wrong, but I think she has so much money, it doesn't matter, though, at this point. She's not begging donors or anything. They're just throwing it at her.
Huh. Well, Boy, she's got some courage, don't she? And I'm not saying that in a good way.
Oh,
I think it's a fool. It's like Chris Christie said. She's going to get smoked. And I tell you what it's doing, Magdalene. It's basically destroying her political career for the future. Because when it's like what Mike Pence did with Trump after all this debacle in 2020. He will never be able to win another election in this country on the Republican side ever. She is destroying her entire political career doing this stuff. Ron DeSantis at least had the sense to get out before he damaged his any further.
Yep, he did. And what's frustrating is Nikki Haley can say how mean Trump is being to her. But at this point, if you're still running against Donald Trump in the Republican primary, anything he does to you is it's okay. I mean, he can say anything to you. He can call you any names. As long as he's not being, physically confrontational, you're in politics. This is what it is. So her trying to play the woman card of he's against women. You're running against someone who's basically the GOP nominee, and you're still wasting people's money doing it. I don't think that's very ethical either.
It's not. One quick question, and Cedric sort of alludes to it. Are you? How do you look at this new guy coming into the RNC? Are you pro, con, against? Do you think he's going to do a good job, or we got to wait and see what happens?
I think we got to wait and see. I don't see any huge red flags. I know he's from North Carolina. We have not lost huge ground in North Carolina in the way we have in other states. If this was someone from Arizona, I'd be horrified because we all know what's happened to the Republican Party in Arizona. Everybody knows it's a disaster. Everyone knows it's been a horrible, horrible couple of years because of Turning Point and Charlie Kirk and Kerry Lake. But I think he has a shot. North Carolina's been pretty good to us. We've always at least been in contention. And that's where we need to stay, always in contention in every state.
That's very true, kid. And they need to hire you with the Republican National Convention to just sit you down and say, tell us what we need to do. They could learn a lot.
I've tried.
I know you tried, and they've not listened like fools. They should have been listening to you. If I tell you what, if I ever run for office, I know who I'm coming to be my campaign manager. Her name is Mahgdalen Rose, who's been our special guest tonight on this McFile Early Bird Thursday night special update with the elections. And, kid, I'm going to let you go now and say goodnight to these people. Thank you for being with me. I'll see you in about a week and a half, okay?
Yep, thank you for having me.
Love you, kid. God bless. Have a good night. Magdalene Rose, everybody. Put some fire in that house. God bless her heart. She is such a good kid, and I want to thank her for being with me. She has got some excellent insight. She sure does, Outdoory. And she is just like my own daughter, to be honest with you. She's precious, 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 precious young lady and very wise beyond her years. And I'm just proud that she's part of this McFile family and network, and she knows that. And thank you all for being with us tonight. Now listen, in about an hour and a half, our regular McFile Network show will air tonight on a Thursday night at 9 o'clock. We'll be back. Mike Simonelli, he's not feeling the best, but he's going to come home by phone as well, and we'll be talking to him. He is dealing with the situation in New York head on, this onslaught of crime wave that is hitting the Big Apple with these illegal aliens and these hackers. There's been networks of hackers that they have found that they're taking people's phones, getting into their bank accounts, and it's just a horrible thing, all by illegal aliens that have been welcomed to the city by Eric Adams. By the way, I don't know if you knew this or not, Eric Adams is basically giving these illegal aliens up to about $58 million on credit cards. When you count them all up, they're getting $1,000. It's either a week or a month to go out and spend the way they want to. And the same people that live in New York City that are not illegal, that go to the city for assistance, they only get about $200 a week. So you go do the math. We're going to talk to Mike about that tonight in no uncertain terms, and we're going to light it up on Thursday night. So be back with me here in about an hour and a half. Thank you, Magdalene Rose, for being with me tonight. God bless you out there. God bless your families. God bless this great nation of America. We'll keep you updated on these elections and the things concerning President Donald Trump and election 2024 right here on the McFiles News Network. Until tonight at 9 o'clock, for Miss Magdalene Rose, Chris McDonald out. I'll see you a bit later. Good night.